Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Erin Kopek, and I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing with Higher Level, a human capital management company. Today, you have joined our High Notes program, and we will be talking about childcare and the workforce behind really what we're looking forward to next. We have Sean Noble with the Illinois State Director of ReadyNation for Illinois. And so thank you all for spending your morning with us. And we are going to get started. So a little bit of housekeeping things before we kick it off. This call will last less than an hour. If you do have questions for Sean, you can pose those during your chat button, or also use your questions box at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to ask questions, and if Sean can cover it, he will try to do so. So a little bit about Sean before we get started. Sean Noble has spent 20 years in nonprofit, state, and federal public policy work aimed at strengthening families and boosting opportunities for kids to succeed in school and their careers. From 2001 through 2011, he helped direct policy, advocacy, and government relation efforts at Voices for Illinois Children. After 2 years as policy director for the National Community Tax Coalition, he joined ReadyNation Illinois in 2013. Prior to his nonprofit work, Sean spent more than a decade reporting for daily newspapers, from Post in Chicago, its suburbs in central Illinois. Much of that work centered on education. He earned a bachelor's degree in journalism from Northern Illinois University and a master's degree in public affairs reporting from the University of Illinois at Springfield. Thank you again, Sean, for joining us, and I turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you very much, Erin, for that introduction, and thanks to you and to Higher Level for this opportunity to talk with you this morning about a topic of real importance. I am going to attempt to share my screen now, and I trust, Erin, you'll let me know if this is not working.
Yes.
But we'll do the best we can with what we've got here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, let me get in present mode here. And thanks also for the opportunity to help me remember whether I could actually tie a necktie or not. It's been a while working remotely, and the practice does come in handy. So again, like Erin was saying, I'm Sean Noble. I'm the Illinois State Director of ReadyNation. Very happy to be with you. This is a topic, of course, childcare that's been in the news a lot lately, and it's probably not leaving the headlines anytime soon because it's not leaving our real lives anytime soon. Childcare, its fundamental relationship with our workforce stability, and workforce productivity. And first, a quick word on who is ReadyNation Illinois. We are ReadyNation, a group of 3,000 plus individual business leaders across the country from a wide variety of sectors, nearly 300 of them here in Illinois, which is where I work and where I believe many, if not all of you are from. I'll be talking about the national perspective on the issues that we're discussing today, but with a pretty heavy dose of Illinois specifics, since that's really what I know best. But I should point out, from our 300 members in Illinois, we've got members in Marion, Carbondale, Murfreesboro to Mount Vernon, Edwardsville to Effingham, all over the state. I should add that one thing about ReadyNation, we're not providers of children's services. We seek no government funding for ourselves and the work that we do. Instead, our work really boils down to this. It's about helping to focus greater attention among the public in general and policymakers in particular on the ways that wise investments in children's well-being can really strengthen our workforce and economy in real demonstrated ways. And we're guided in this work by two things. First, by years of solid research about what is particularly effective in supporting the workforce of today and helping to shape the workforce of tomorrow. Secondly, we benefit from the experience of our own members in their roles as business owners, managers, supervisors, executives who have a day-to-day view of what's most important in hiring, fielding, and maintaining a strong workforce. And to that end, we're very grateful for several executives from Higher Level themselves as members of ReadyNation, who really have a ground level perspective on what's important to business and to our economy. Now, reflecting that experience is this observation: in order to work, parents need workable childcare options, period. They need services that are accessible and affordable, reliable, and high quality. And that's true regardless really of what business sector or industry we're talking about. You can see on this slide just some of the various fields that are represented by ReadyNation members in Illinois alone. Not a single one of these sectors can really function well without childcare for their employees. And that's always been the case, but it's especially apparent now after more than 16, 17 months of hard lessons from the pressures of the COVID pandemic. And amidst all the overlapping health, social, and economic crises that we've endured during that time, we've seen a very bright spotlight focused on the significance of childcare. We've gotten a better look at what happens when childcare providers are forced to scale back or close down entirely. We've seen the fallout from about 1/3 of American childcare workers leaving their sector altogether. A huge proportion of those workers have been women, and women of color in particular. And the ripple effects from these childcare losses have had an especially harsh effect on still other working women in other sectors of work. And that's a subject ReadyNation tackled in a detailed report just a few weeks ago. It showed, among other things, that from February of 2020 to this past February, 2.4 million women left the US workforce compared with 1.8 million men. Although employment rates have increased in recent months, thankfully, women still lag behind men in the ability to return to work. Plus, projections seem to hint that female employment may not rebound to pre-pandemic levels until late 2024, which is about a year and a half later than forecasted for male workers. Overall, as we're still trying to pull out of the economic downturn that's been driven by the pandemic, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce reports that nearly 1/4 of all unemployed Americans say that family needs are their biggest obstacles in trying to return to work. And childcare problems are a chief example of those struggles. And yet at their core, most of our nation's childcare challenges really aren't new. For many years, the underlying problems have remained about the same. Their lack of affordability, lack of availability, lack of accessibility, chronically low compensation for staff who are performing what we all agree are critically important duties and roles in our economy, and several other struggles that were simply made much worse by the COVID pressures overall. In fact, with kind of sad irony, just days before the pandemic exploded last year, ReadyNation Illinois issued a report on this very topic. And we did so at a news conference with Chamber of Commerce execs from Aurora and Geneva in the suburbs of Chicago. Our report drew on national surveys of over 800 working parents of infants and toddlers, and it assessed their childcare challenges. And you can see some of what we found here as we're trying to kind of hang some hard numbers and quantification on some longstanding problems. Parents in this survey reported nearly 2/3 of them having to leave work early because of infant toddler childcare insufficiencies. Over half of them said they were late for work, missed a full day of work, or were distracted while on the job because of childcare pressures. There's absenteeism, which is of course missing work altogether. And then there's presenteeism, which refers to being on the job, but really being distracted because of things outside of the job, such as childcare problems, and thus not really being able to put in full effort at work, presenteeism. And about 1/3 of the survey respondents were parents who said they had to miss at least some hours of their work. Now, the problems, of course, are not just about today's work and today's careers and jobs. There's also something to consider when it comes to, pardon me there, career prospects for the future. 1 in 4 of our survey respondents reported having to cut back on their hours, turn down further job training, or even a job offer due to childcare problems. About 16% of them had to say no to a promotion, remarkably, and over 1 in 7 had to actually quit a job altogether. All of these harmful work outcomes, all related to the problems of childcare insufficiencies and inadequacies, come with a price. And to estimate those costs in this report, ReadyNation had enlisted the help of Clyde Belfield, who's an economist with the City University of New York and Columbia University. And what he found was this, and you got a sneak preview of that a moment ago. Really, oh, there's the slide I thought I was talking from. My apologies. So these are problems for career advancement here, and the problems overall for the economy are these. Overall, these costs amounted to $57 billion a year, which are costs to individual working families, to employers, to our nation's tax base. And it's important to remember 2 things about these costs. Number one, they're specific to infant and toddler childcare alone, meaning the price tag really would be much higher if we also factored in the effects of insufficient care for kids who are age 3 and older. And number 2, these costs are pre-pandemic figures, and they certainly have grown during COVID to be much higher. Now, we're grateful that our efforts to quantify these effects have been examined and cited by policymakers at many levels, from the White House itself and U.S. House leadership to the National Conference of State Legislatures. And speaking of the NCSL, we've spent some time drilling down further to what all of this means at the state-by-state level, and you can see here. When you consider each state's share of the nation's population and overall GDP, you get a state-by-state picture of what this means for the economy, and the figures are pretty sobering. Now, for Illinois itself, the infant toddler childcare crisis totals nearly $2.5 billion to our state annually. And you can see the breakdown here of the individual costs to working families, to employers, and to our proportion of the federal tax base. That's not even considering our state tax base. It's interesting to note that a similar study undertaken in North Carolina just several months ago tried to determine what kind of a multiplier effect the pandemic might be applying to these childcare problems. And it came up with a factor of about 20%, which sounds pretty conservative to me. But if we added even just a conservative 20% COVID factor to our Illinois costs, the cost would overall quickly balloon to about $3 billion total. And again, that's just reflecting insufficiencies in care for our youngest kids, age 3 and younger. Of course, we're not just concerned about the effects on our current workforce. There's also the shaping and the development of our future workforce to consider, the next generation of workers, and that's really another of ReadyNation's most core concerns. Research consistently underscores the value of high-quality childcare and other early childhood investments in this regard. We've issued a number of reports to this effect over the years, and the findings are such as those that you see here. Increased ability for kids to be able to do well in school and graduate, decreased likelihood that they'll get in trouble or require costly remediations while they're in school, and finally strengthening really a base of critical skills, hard skills, technical skills such as early literacy, math, science, really a lot of skills that, as you can see from this report that we issued a number of years ago, are critical to our future STEM workforce. But the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills, and just as fundamental to workforce success, according to employers and managers. There we go. They're known by various names such as social emotional skills, character skills, executive functioning skills, but they all relate to the same kinds of abilities. Skills such as basic creativity, collaboration in teams, the ability to work independently, the ability to persevere in tasks and keep on top of things, good communications with one's supervisor and colleagues. These skills extend even to the ability to show up for work every day on time and put in a full day's worth of effort. And that's something that we hear quite a bit from our business leader colleagues. Even those most fundamental abilities are something that they see lacking sometimes in their hiring pool. National surveys of employers have borne out these worries, as you see here from the Wall Street Journal. And several years ago, ReadyNation commissioned a poll of our own. We wanted to survey employers and managers on this topic and zero in a little bit more on employers' concerns. And what we found were similar results with the increasing need for strong character skills as employers see it, yet the increasing inability to find those skills a lot of times. Most striking to us was this, the strong realization by business leaders that even more so than with the hard or the technical skills, employers understood that it's really tough to instill these soft skills in workforce age adults and that it really needs to happen earlier in life. They said the best time to see these skills really is pretty commonly understood to be when kids are very young, laying a critical foundation for their future success. So it wasn't surprising then that nearly 9 out of 10 survey respondents also said they solidly support investing in early childhood programs that can help with the skills building work. High quality birth to 3 services, preschool, and of course, high quality childcare. Now, Here's another demonstration of the significance of this work. Data from the Illinois State Board of Education and its annual kindergarten individual development surveys, and known by the acronym KIDS, KIDS. This is a snapshot of incoming kindergartners from the fall of 2019. The KIDS surveys are not a paper and pencil test of 5-year-olds, but really it's a set of observations from their teachers on the 40th day of the school year, assessing what their students can do. And you can see the results here. Only a little over half of incoming kindergartners were really ready for school and social and emotional development that fall, those kinds of skills we just discussed. Less than half were ready in language and literacy, and only a little over a third in early math skills. Overall, only about 30% of kids were really entering school fully prepared for success. And we know that when we drill down even further on these and other stats, we see proportionally greater challenges for young children of color. These longstanding school readiness challenges too often carry through into elementary and secondary standardized test results, graduation rates. They often extend even further into adult workforce outcomes, from disproportionately higher unemployment rates to lower compensation rates on average and wide racial wealth gaps. Just a few months ago in March, ReadyNation Illinois issued a report that drew kind of a through line between these racial inequities that are seen in early childhood and those that appear in adulthood. We noted the research that shows, once again, if we invest more fully in young children, we're likely to see better outcomes for them as adults. And that's especially true when it comes to Black and brown children, who sometimes show proportionally greater gains from such investments. There's even bigger bang for the buck when we're able to make these investments. We emphasize that point again here in the op-ed that you see from one of our ReadyNation members who's a utilities executive, and this was printed in Crane Chicago Business, making these points. This topic is especially important as workers of color represent an increasingly larger share overall of our workforce, and it's obviously not just a matter of justice and equity, but overall good economic sense. So coming around now to answers, what really are the solutions to these challenges? What can be done to fix things and to get our workforce, our economies at the community level and state level and the national level back on track to stability and productivity? At the most local level, which is individual businesses, the answers include providing work schedules more often that are as predictable and as flexible as possible for employees. This is especially challenging for parents in such sectors as retail, where employees are often called into work on short notice or scheduled at hours when childcare options are limited at best and entirely unavailable at worst. Employers also can offer backup care for employees or even subsidies to help them afford and access care. In some cases, individual businesses have really stepped up and arranged for on-site childcare for their employees' children, which is really admirable and helpful. But it does require adequate space, childcare staff, licensing, and other resources that can be kind of tough to come by for most businesses, at least mid-sized to smaller businesses, which are the majority of them in our country. Overall, the economies of scale make that level of individual business solution pretty tough to manage. But public policies at the state level can be adjusted and improved to help bolster childcare options for working parents. And we have some really good recent examples in Illinois to point to. Just citing a couple of them, as of last month, the state of Illinois reduced monthly copay fees that are charged to working parents who seek help through the Child Care Assistance Program. Those who are earning less than the federal poverty level now will pay no more than $1 a month for such help. And that equates to about 80% of all families participating in that Child Care Assistance Program. An example of who we're talking about here would be a single mother with 2 kids who's earning up to about $22,000 a year. The state also capped at 7% of family income the co-pays that such parents must pay overall for this child care help. And the state increased by 3.5% the reimbursement rates paid to their participating child care providers. This is not enough, but it's a good start. It's a good direction to head in further. These state policies come on top of other state measures that were fueled in part and in turn by several waves of federal aid that have been approved since the beginning of the pandemic. One of the best examples of state and federal partnership in action here in Illinois involves what are known as child care restoration grants. These grants have helped more than 5,000 home and center-based providers to pay their bills, keep their doors open for several months at a time during COVID. Those grants have totaled $430 million and counting, and they have reached providers in every corner of the state pretty admirably. More of this kind of help and partnership is going to be necessary to weather the remainder of the pandemic storm and our recovery from it. Not to mention helping with the prospect of building a much stronger system of early care and education that's worthy of the 21st century needs of kids, their working parents, employers, and our economy, something that we really need. The good news is there's more of an appetite at the federal level, even as we speak right now, to delve further into these questions. And it comes at a critical time for our country in general and Illinois in particular. And here's why. Coincidentally, less than 3 months before COVID hit, the governor of Illinois appointed a bipartisan commission to study the needs of our state's early childhood system. And this group consisted of voices from the worlds of education, human services, local and state government, business. This commission was asked to spend a year examining what works, what doesn't, some lessons from other states, and so forth, all with an eye toward issuing some recommendations for big picture improvements in the adequacy and the equity of pre-K, childcare, and some key birth to 3 services and their support, their funding. This past spring, the group issued its report suggesting 3 big changes to pursue over time, and you can see them on this slide here. First, the establishment for the first time ever of a long-term funding goal to actually guide our efforts at helping all young children whose parents want it to access high quality services. The question was actually posed, what would it cost? What would it cost and what can we aim for? And the answer is it really calls for the commitment of billions of dollars in new resources over time, the commission noted. Second and third here, related points, the streamlining of the system of funding to simplify things for parents and service providers alike, because right now the funding is really spread across several different funding streams in Illinois, each with its own set of rules and particulars that can provide obstacles and confusion. And the same thing with just the administration over all of these programs that are spread among 3 or 4 state agencies. The idea being, let's pull them under one over time to make things more straightforward and easier to navigate for parents and for providers. All these goals remain just recommendations for now, and they're pretty ambitious. None is going to be accomplished overnight or without the help of substantial new resources, but at least we now have a solid blueprint for moving forward. It's a matter of now taking the first few steps on a path forward. As higher level president and CEO Triska Tubig, who's a ReadyNation member, notes in this letter to the Southern here, we at least now have a path forward to try to aim to follow. And her letter actually brings us to one of the most important questions, and starting to wrap things up here. For those of us today on this call, how can business execs really help? That's where ReadyNation comes in. Our sole purpose is to help business leaders to raise their voices in support of smart public investments in these efforts, policy steps toward lifting up the well-being of kids, their families, communities, our workforce, and our entire economy. We try to help connect the dots between childcare and a stable economy, between high-quality pre-K and skills building for our future workforce, between investing in kids today and good results for employers and entire communities, both today and tomorrow. And we do this in a number of ways that largely boil down to communications efforts. We release reports on these topics once or twice a year. We heard a few citations of examples from some of them in this presentation. We meet with state and federal policymakers, both at the Capitol and back home in district, and of course these days largely by Zoom, really. We speak up in the news media through op-eds, letters to the editor. Membership in ReadyNation keeps you in the loop of communications about our reports and our research, our updates and our activities. There are no dues or fees to participate in ReadyNation because we're supported through charitable foundations that believe in our goals for children and families, our workforce and economy. And examples of those are the McCormick and the Irving Harris foundations, among others. In addition, there are no obligations for ReadyNation membership. All of our activities are entirely voluntary. Essentially, ReadyNation members get an occasional email, and if they see us doing something they like, have time for, and want to take part in, they're in. They let us know. We try to make participation as easy and as user-friendly as possible for participating business leaders because we know they're busy people with more than enough to do, but they're also busy people who care about these issues and who'd like to know of ways to help out when they've got the time, the inclination, and know that they could have the staffing support that ReadyNation can provide to speak up. So I would love the opportunity to connect with any of you who are business executives at any level to talk with you further about the resource that ReadyNation could be for you. Among other things, we could assemble a quick snapshot of local kindergarten readiness data for you, looking at your own communities. We've got information about those childcare restoration grants that have gone out to providers around the state. I'd be happy to share copies of our reports and research with you, and happy to answer any questions you might have. I'd invite you to drop your name and email address to me at the email address you see here, if you'd like, to learn more. And for right now, I'd simply like to thank Aaron and Higher Level once again and open things up for any questions that you might have. And in so doing, I'm going to attempt to take us off of my screen and back to where we might be able to see each other for questions and answers. So Aaron, thank you again, and I'll turn it over to you to kind of captain from here.
All right, thank you so much, Sean. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you for introducing us, or at least me, to this, and really bringing it up to the forefront as a new mother in 2020. Definitely hits home more than it has before. So thank you for sharing the resources and data with us today as business professionals. And I don't see that we have any questions, but thank you for spending your morning with us. We're going to sign off, and Sean, have a great rest of your day, and everybody else for attending.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.